Good evening, and welcome. Tonight, we are exploring one of the most remarkable stories in human history. It is the story of a nation that began as a narrow strip of colonies along the Atlantic coast and eventually grew into the most powerful country on Earth. Its influence can be seen in technology, business, entertainment, science, and global politics. Few nations have shaped the modern world as deeply as the United States of America, yet its rise was far from inevitable. In the beginning, there was no powerful nation, no massive economy, and no global influence. There were only scattered settlements facing uncertainty, hardship, and an unknown future. Many colonies struggled to survive, and few people could have imagined what they would eventually become over the centuries. The United States experienced revolution, civilva, industrial expansion, economic transformation, and global conflict. Each generation faced challenges that tested the country's future. Some moments brought extraordinary success. Others brought deep division and hardship. Together, these events shaped the nation that exists today. This is not simply the story of how America became rich or powerful. It is the story of ambition, opportunity, innovation, and resilience. It is the story of millions of people who helped build a country that would eventually influence nearly every corner of the world. Tonight, we will follow that journey from the earliest colonies to the modern era and discover how the United States became the most powerful nation in the world. Long before the United States existed, North America was already home to millions of people. Indigenous nations lived across the continent for thousands of years, building communities, creating trade networks, and developing rich cultures that were deeply connected to the land. Their societies were diverse and complex, stretching from the forests of the Northeast to the deserts of the Southwest and the vast plains of the interior. Everything began to change when European explorers arrived. During the 15th and 16th centuries, powerful nations such as Spain, France, and Britain started exploring and claiming territory in the New World. They were searching for wealth, resources, and new opportunities. Over time, settlements appeared along the eastern coast of North America, and more people crossed the Atlantic hoping to build better lives. Many of these settlers left Europe because they wanted opportunities that seemed impossible at home. Some were seeking land, others wanted religious freedom, many simply hoped to escape poverty and create a future for their families. The journey was dangerous, and life in the colonies was often harsh. Disease, food shortages, brutal winters, and conflicts with both nature and neighboring communities tested the survival of every settlement. Despite these challenges, the colonies continued to grow. Farms expanded across the countryside. Ports became busy, centers of trade. New towns appeared along rivers and coastlines. As the population increased, prosperity slowly followed. People began to see possibilities that had never existed before. Although the colonies remained under British rule, something important was happening. A new identity was beginning to form. The people living in North America were still connected to Britain, but their lives were becoming increasingly different from those of the people across the ocean. Without realizing it, they were laying the foundations of a future nation, a nation that would one day transform the course of world history. By the middle of the 18th century, the British colonies in North America had become larger, wealthier, and more confident. Trade was expanding, cities were growing, and many colonists believed they had earned the same rights as citizens living in Britain. However, events taking place across the Atlantic would soon change the relationship between the colonies and the British government. Britain had spent enormous amounts of money fighting costly wars, particularly the French and Indian War. In an effort to recover these expenses, the British government introduced new taxes on the colonies. From London's perspective, the taxes seemed reasonable. From the colonists' perspective, they felt unfair. They were being taxed by a government in which they had no direct representation. Tension continued to rise. Protests spread throughout the colonies, and resistance became increasingly organized. Many colonists argued that freedom and self-government were fundamental rights. As disagreements deepened, trust between Britain and the colonies began to disappear. One event became a powerful symbol of growing anger. In 1773, a group of colonists boarded British ships in Boston Harbor and dumped large quantities of tea into the water. The protest became known as the Boston Tea Party. Britain responded with harsh measures, hoping to restore control. Instead, the actions pushed the colonies even closer together. By 1775, conflict could no longer be avoided. Fighting broke out between colonial militias and British forces. What began as protests over taxes and political rights quickly evolved into a full-scale war. The colonists were no longer simply demanding change. Increasingly, they were beginning to imagine a future independent from British rule. In July 1776, representatives from the colonies approved the Declaration of Independence. The document announced to the world that the colonies considered themselves free and independent states. It was a bold and dangerous decision. Britain remained one of the most powerful empires on earth, and victory was far from certain. After years of difficult fighting, the colonies achieved what many had once believed was impossible. With determination, leadership, and support from foreign allies, they defeated Britain and secured their independence. A new nation had been born. The United States of America had taken its first steps onto the stage of history. Winning independence was only the beginning. The new United States had defeated Britain, but many difficult questions remained unanswered. The country was young, fragile, and deeply uncertain about its future. Its leaders now faced the challenge of building a stable government capable of holding the nation together. At first, the United States operated under a weak system known as the Articles of Confederation. While it provided a framework for cooperation among the states, it gave the national government very little power. As economic problems and political disagreements increased, many leaders became concerned that the new nation might not survive. In 1787, representatives from across the country gathered in Philadelphia to create a new system of government. The result was the United States Constitution. It established a balance of power between different branches of government and created a framework that still guides the country today. The Constitution became one of the most influential political documents in history. Not everyone agreed on how the nation should be governed. Fierce debates emerged between political leaders with different visions for America's future. Some believed the federal government needed greater authority. Others feared centralized power and wanted stronger rights for individual states. These disagreements helped shape the country's first political parties and established traditions that continue to influence American politics. Despite these challenges, the young nation continued to grow. New businesses appeared, trade expanded, immigration increased, cities developed along the Atlantic coast. While farmers pushed further into the interior, confidence slowly replaced uncertainty as Americans began to believe that their experiment in self-government could succeed. One of the most important figures during this period was George Washington. As the nation's first president, he helped establish trust in the new government and set important precedents for future leaders. His leadership provided stability during a time when the survival of the country was far from guaranteed. By the end of the 18th century, the United States remained a small nation compared to the great powers of Europe. Yet beneath the surface, powerful forces were already shaping its future. A stable government had been created. Economic growth was accelerating. The foundations of a larger and more influential nation were beginning to take shape. As the 19th century began, the United States was still a relatively small nation, concentrated along the eastern part of the continent. However, many Americans believed their future lay beyond the Appalachian Mountains. Vast stretches of land extended westward, offering opportunities that seemed almost limitless. One of the most significant moments came in 1803, when the United States purchased a massive territory from France, known as the Louisiana Purchase. The deal nearly doubled the size of the country. Suddenly, millions of acres of land became available for exploration, settlement, and expansion. It was one of the most important land acquisitions in American history. The desire to move west became a defining feature of the nation. Farmers searched for fertile land. Entrepreneurs sought new opportunities. Families dreamed of building better lives on the frontier. Trails stretched across the continent as thousands of settlers packed their belongings and headed toward unknown destinations. This expansion brought remarkable growth, but it also came at a tremendous cost. Native American nations faced increasing pressure as settlers moved into their territories. Many communities were displaced from lands they had occupied for generations. Conflicts became more frequent, and government policies often favored expansion over the rights of indigenous peoples. The idea that the United States was destined to expand across the continent became widely popular. Many Americans believed their nation had a special mission to spread its institutions and way of life. From coast to coast, this belief encouraged further settlement and fueled rapid territorial growth. New states joined the Union. Transportation improved through canals, roads, and railroads. Trade expanded into previously isolated regions. Cities emerged where only small settlements had once existed. Every decade seemed to push the nation further west. By the middle of the 19th century, the United States had become far larger than its founders could have imagined. Yet this rapid growth also exposed deep divisions. As new territories entered the country, Americans increasingly disagreed about slavery, political power, and the future direction of the nation. These tensions would soon lead to the greatest crisis in American history. By the middle of the 19th century, the United States was growing rapidly, but beneath the surface, the country was becoming increasingly divided. The most serious issue was slavery. While slavery remained a central part of the economy in many southern states, opposition to the institution was growing in the North. As new territories joined the nation, Americans argued fiercely over whether slavery should expand into these regions. Political compromises delayed conflict for many years, but they failed to solve the underlying problem. Each side believed the future of the country was at stake. Tensions continued to rise, and trust between the North and South steadily eroded. The nation that had fought together for independence was now struggling to remain united. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln was elected president. Many Southern leaders feared that his administration would limit the expansion of slavery. Shortly after his election, several Southern states chose to leave the Union and form their own government. The United States was now divided into two opposing sides. War began in 1861. What many expected to be a short conflict quickly became one of the deadliest wars in American history. Battles were fought across vast areas of the country. Entire communities were affected. Families found themselves divided by loyalty, geography, and ideology. The human cost was enormous throughout the war. Abraham Lincoln argued that preserving the Union was essential. Over time, the conflict became closely linked to the issue of slavery itself. In 1863, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring freedom for enslaved people in Confederate territories. The war was no longer only about preserving the nation. It had also become a struggle over human freedom. After 4 years of brutal fighting, the Union emerged victorious. In 1865, slavery was abolished, and the country remained united. However, the scars left by the war would endure for generations. Hundreds of thousands of lives had been lost, and rebuilding the nation would take decades. Despite the destruction, the Civil War transformed the United States. It strengthened the federal government, ended slavery, and reshaped the country's future. The nation had survived its greatest internal crisis. Soon, it would enter a period of economic growth and industrial expansion, unlike anything the world had ever seen. After the Civil War, the United States entered a period of extraordinary transformation. The country was still healing from years of conflict, but at the same time, it was experiencing one of the fastest periods of economic growth in modern history. New technologies, expanding industries, and a growing population began to reshape the nation. Railroads played a crucial role in this transformation. Thousands of miles of track connected distant regions of the country, allowing goods, people, and ideas to move faster than ever before. Areas that had once seemed isolated suddenly became connected to national markets. Businesses could reach customers across vast distances, and opportunities expanded dramatically. Factories appeared in growing cities throughout the country. Steel production increased. Oil became a valuable resource. New inventions improved communication, transportation, and manufacturing. Entrepreneurs such as Andrew Carnegie, John D. Rockefeller, and Thomas Edison became symbols of a rapidly changing economy. Their companies helped create industries that would influence the world for generations. At the same time, millions of immigrants arrived from Europe and other parts of the world. Many came seeking the same opportunities that had attracted settlers centuries earlier. They worked in factories, built railroads, opened businesses, and contributed to the nation's growth. Their labor helped fuel the industrial expansion that was transforming America into an economic powerhouse. Life was not easy for everyone. Factory workers often faced long hours, dangerous conditions, and low wages. Children frequently worked alongside adults. Wealth became concentrated in the hands of a small number of powerful industrialists. While many families struggled to make ends meet, these inequalities led to labor movements, protests, and demands for reform. Despite these challenges, the United States continued to grow at an astonishing pace. Cities expanded rapidly. New technologies changed everyday life. Businesses became larger and more efficient. By the end of the 19th century, the American economy was among the strongest in the world. The foundations of modern America were now taking shape. Industrial power, innovation, and economic growth had transformed the country from a developing nation into a rising giant. It would not be long before the United States began to exert its influence far beyond its own borders. As the 20th century began, the United States was already one of the world's largest economies. Its factories produced enormous quantities of goods. Its population continued to grow, and its influence was steadily expanding. Yet America was not yet the dominant global power it would eventually become. That transformation would be shaped by a series of international events that changed the course of history. The first major turning point came during World War I. Although the United States initially remained neutral, it eventually joined the conflict in 1917. American troops and resources helped tip the balance in favor of the Allied powers. When the war ended, the United States emerged with greater international influence and a stronger position in global affairs. The years that followed brought both prosperity and hardship. During the 1920s, economic growth surged, and new technologies transformed daily life. However, this period of optimism came to a sudden end, with the Great Depression beginning in 1929. Millions of Americans lost jobs, businesses collapsed, and economic suffering spread across the country. It became one of the most difficult periods in American history. Just as the nation was recovering, another global crisis emerged. World War II would become the most destructive conflict the world had ever seen. After the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, the United States entered the war and mobilized on an unprecedented scale. Factories shifted to wartime production. Millions of citizens joined the military, and the nation's industrial power became a decisive factor in the Allied victory. When the war ended in 1945, much of Europe and Asia had been devastated. The United States, however, emerged stronger than ever. Its economy was booming, its military was unmatched, and its influence extended across the globe. For the first time, America stood at the center of world affairs. In the decades that followed, the United States and the Soviet Union became rivals in a long struggle known as the Cold War. Although direct war between the two powers never occurred, they competed in politics, technology, military strength, and scientific achievement. The space race, nuclear competition, and global alliances became defining features of this era. By the end of the 20th century, the Soviet Union had collapsed, and the United States remained the world's leading superpower. Its military, economy, culture, and technology influenced nearly every region of the globe. The rise that had begun with a handful of colonies had now reached a level of power that few nations in history had ever achieved. For generations, people around the world have been drawn to the idea of the American dream. Although the meaning has changed over time, the core belief remains simple. Through hard work, determination, and opportunity, individuals can improve their lives and create a better future for themselves and their families. This idea became one of the most powerful parts of America's identity. Millions of immigrants arrived from every corner of the world carrying hopes for a new beginning. They came seeking jobs, education, freedom, and opportunities that were often unavailable in their home countries. Many arrived with very little, yet believed that success was possible through effort and perseverance. The United States offered opportunities that attracted people from diverse backgrounds. Expanding industries created jobs. Universities became centers of research and innovation. Entrepreneurs launched businesses that would eventually become global companies. Inventors, scientists, artists, and business leaders found environments where new ideas could flourish. Throughout the 20th century, America became a symbol of economic possibility. Home ownership increased. Consumer goods became more accessible. Higher education expanded. Technological innovation accelerated. For many families, each generation achieved a higher standard of living than the one before it. American culture also spread around the world. Hollywood films, television programs, music, sports, and technology reached audiences far beyond the country's borders. Companies founded in the United States became household names across continents. In many places, America came to represent ambition, innovation, and opportunity. Yet the American dream was never experienced equally by everyone. Many people faced barriers related to race, poverty, discrimination, or unequal access to opportunities. Social movements emerged to challenge these inequalities and push the country toward greater fairness and inclusion. The pursuit of equality became an important part of America's ongoing story, even today. The idea of the American dream continues to inspire millions of people. Some see it as a reality. Others see it as a goal that remains unfinished. Regardless of perspective, the belief that individuals can shape their own future remains one of the most influential ideas ever associated with the United States. The rise of the United States is one of the most remarkable stories in history. But it is not a story without controversy. Like every great power, America has faced criticism, mistakes, and challenges that continue to shape debates, both at home and abroad. One of the most persistent issues has been inequality. While the country created enormous wealth, that prosperity has not always been shared equally. Some communities have enjoyed extraordinary opportunities, while others have struggled with poverty, limited access to education, and economic hardship. These differences have fueled political debates for generations. Race has also played a central role in the American story. The legacy of slavery, segregation, and discrimination left deep scars that continue to influence society today. Over time, major civil rights movements pushed the country toward greater equality. But many Americans still disagree about how much progress has been made and what challenges remain. Internationally, the United States has often been praised for promoting democracy and economic development. At the same time, critics point to military interventions, foreign conflicts, and controversial policies that have shaped America's reputation around the world. Supporters argue that American leadership has contributed to global stability, while critics believe some actions created long-term problems. Political division has become another significant challenge. Americans often hold strongly different views on government, economics, social issues, and foreign policy. These disagreements are not new, but modern technology and media have made political conflicts more visible than ever before. Economic competition has also intensified. Countries such as China have emerged as major global powers, creating new challenges for American influence and leadership. Advances in technology, artificial intelligence, and global trade continue to reshape the balance of power in ways that were difficult to imagine only a few decades ago. Despite these challenges, the United States remains a country capable of adapting and reinventing itself. Throughout its history, America has repeatedly faced periods of crisis, uncertainty, and division, yet time after time, it has found ways to move forward. That ability to evolve may be one of the most important reasons the nation continues to play such a significant role in the modern world. More than 2 centuries after its founding, the United States continues to play a central role in global affairs. Its economy remains one of the largest in the world. Its military capabilities are unmatched by most nations. Its universities attract students from nearly every country, and its companies continue to shape industries ranging from technology and finance to entertainment and medicine. Many of the innovations that influence daily life originate in the United States. American companies have helped transform communication, transportation, healthcare, and digital technology. From the internet to artificial intelligence. The country's influence extends far beyond its borders and affects billions of people around the world. The United States also remains a major cultural force. American films, music, literature, and media continue to reach global audiences. Ideas that emerge within the country often spread internationally, influencing discussions about politics, business, education, and social change. At the same time, the world is becoming more complex. New economic powers are rising. Technology is evolving at an unprecedented pace. Global challenges such as climate change, cybersecurity, and international competition require cooperation between nations. America's role in this changing environment continues to evolve. What makes the United States unique is not simply its wealth or military strength. It is the combination of innovation, diversity, ambition, and adaptability that has allowed the country to remain influential through periods of both success and crisis. The nation has repeatedly faced challenges that seemed overwhelming, yet it has often found ways to reinvent itself and move forward, whether admired, criticized, or debated. The United States remains one of the most influential nations in human history. Its decisions affect global markets, international politics, scientific progress, and cultural trends. Understanding how America rose to power helps us better understand the modern world itself. The story of the United States is ultimately a story of transformation. What began as a collection of small colonies on the edge of a vast continent grew into a nation that would shape the course of global history. Its rise was not the result of a single event or a single leader. It was built over generations through exploration, conflict, innovation, ambition, and the efforts of millions of ordinary people. The American journey has never been simple. It includes moments of remarkable achievement and moments of deep struggle. It is a story filled with triumphs, mistakes, opportunities, and contradictions. Yet perhaps that complexity is what makes it so fascinating. Few nations have experienced such dramatic change in such a relatively short period of time. From independence and westward expansion to industrial growth, world wars, and technological innovation. Each chapter contributed to the rise of a country that now influences nearly every aspect of modern life. Its economy, culture, ideas, and inventions continue to reach far beyond its borders. The future of the United States remains unwritten. New challenges will emerge. New generations will shape the country's direction. The world will continue to change, and America will change with it. Whether its influence grows, declines, or evolves in unexpected ways, its impact on human history is already undeniable. Perhaps the most important lesson is that nations are not built overnight. They are shaped by countless decisions, sacrifices, successes, and failures over many generations. The rise of the United States reminds us that history is not only the story of governments and leaders, it is also the story of ordinary people whose choices help shape the future. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the history of the United States. I hope this story has given you a deeper understanding of how a small collection of colonies became one of the most powerful nations the world has ever known.